History of animation.
Week 1. Animation before Disney.
Early approaches to motion in art.
The Magic Lantern. Thaumatrope. The Zoetrope. Numerous devices which displayed animated images were introduced in the 1800s before the invention of the motion picture. These toys were used to entertain, amaze, and sometimes even frighten people. Many of these devices didn't project their images and therefore could only be viewed by a single person at any one time. The Magic Lantern or Lanterna Magica is an early type of image projector developed in the 17th century. The Magic Lantern has a concave mirror in front of a light source that gathers light and projects it through a slide with a transparent image on it. The light rays cross an aperture, which is an opening at the front of the apparatus, and hit a lens. The lens throws an enlarged picture of the original image from the slide onto a screen. It was also an important invention for the motion picture film and 45mm projector because of its ability to screen moving images. To achieve this, mechanical slides were used to make the images move. This was done using two glass slides, one with the part of the picture that would remain stationary and one with the part of the picture that would move on a disc. The glass slides were placed one on top of the other in an orderly fashion and a hand-operated pulley wheel was used to turn the movable disc. The Magic Lantern also led directly to Edward Muybridge's invention of the zoopraxiscope, which was another forerunner for moving pictures. Real animation can never be achieved without the person first understanding a basic principle: the persistence of vision. This particular principle was first brought to our notice in the 19th century by a Frenchman with the name of Paul Roget, who also invented the thaumatrope. This particular contraption happened to be a disc with a string attached on both ends. One side of the disc had a bird on it and the other an empty cage. When the disc was twirled, the bird would appear to be in the cage. This only goes to show that the human eye can retain images even when it is exposed to a series of pictures, one at a time. The zoetrope was invented in 1834 by William Horner, who originally called it a die-doll-yum or will of the devil. Horner's invention strangely became forgotten for nearly 30 years until 1867, when it became patented in England by M. Bradley, and in America by William F. Lincoln. Lincoln renamed the die-doll-yum, giving it the name of zoetrope, or wheel of life.
How it works.
The zoetrope is an optical toy much like the thaumatrope that uses the persistence of vision principle to create an illusion of motion. It consists of a simple drum with an open top, supported on a central axis. A sequence of hand-drawn pictures or photos on strips of paper are placed around the inner bottom of the drum. Slots are cut at equal distances around the outer surface of the drum, just above where the picture strips were to be positioned. To create an illusion of motion, the drum is spun. The faster the rate of spin, the smoother the progression of images. A viewer can look through the wall of the zoetrope from any point around it, and see a rapid progression of images. Because of its design, more than one person could use the zoetrope at the same time.
Project: making a thaumatrope.
The purpose of this activity is to give you the opportunity to demonstrate persistence of vision, in which the brain superimposes one image over the other to create a picture that doesn't really exist, the same principle that allows movies to work. Print off and cut out two circular shapes for each thaumatrope. Cut two pieces of string, 2 feet long, for each thaumatrope. Note: tagboard makes a stiffer and better thaumatrope, so you may want to use the circular shape for a pattern, trace it onto tagboard, and cut it out. Draw and color two pictures, that go together, on each side of the circle. An example would be a bird on one side and a bird cage on the other. Use rulers to measure the precise location of the picture on each side of the circle so when the images superimpose, they will go together. You may also use rulers to draw a guideline across the center of the circle to determine the location for the 2 holes that will be punched on either side of the circle. Tie the ends of each string together in a knot. Thread each string through the hole on either side of the circle and loop it back through itself to attach it. Twist the strings with your fingers or by flipping the disc over and over. This will cause the circle to spin. When the speed is just right, the bird will appear to be in the cage. Get creative and experiment with other images, such as the top half of a person on one side and the bottom half on the other, a juggler with balls, a bald man and a wig, etc. Edward Muybridge, born April 9, 1830, died May 8, 1904, was a British photographer who spent much of his working life in California, and traveling in other parts of the United States. He is known for his pioneering work on animal locomotion in 1877 and 1878, which used multiple cameras to capture motion in stop-action photographs, and his zoopraxiscope, a device for projecting motion pictures that predated the flexible perforated film strip used in cinematography. He went on to make many studies of animals and humans in motion, capturing what the human eye could not distinguish as separate movements.
Muybridge's zoopraxiscope.
The zoopraxiscope projected images from a rotating disc in quick succession, producing a moving image. Muybridge experimented with images of animals, horses, antelopes, elephants and other wildlife. It was said that the zoopraxiscope was the basis for the kinetoscope, which was invented by Thomas Edison and William Dickson. Muybridge also inspired many artists, ranging from composer Philip Glass to the legendary band U2, who have integrated his images and the technique in their music videos. In 1872, the former governor of California Leland Stanford, a businessman and racehorse owner, hired Muybridge for some photographic studies. The job was offered so Stanford could settle a bet whether all 4 feet of a horse were off the ground at the same time while trotting. The human eye could not break down the action at the quick gaits of the trot and gallop. By 1878, spurred on by Stanford to expand the experiments, Muybridge had successfully photographed a horse at a trot. Stanford also wanted a study of the horse at a gallop. Muybridge planned to take a series of photos on June 19, 1878 at Stanford's Palo Alto stock farm. He placed numerous large glass plate cameras in a line along the edge of a track. The shutter of each was triggered by a thread as the horse passed. The path was lined with cloth sheets to reflect as much light as possible in Sally Gardner at a gallop or the horse in motion. He shows images of the horse with all feet off the ground. This did not take place when the horse's legs were extended to the front and back, as imagined by contemporary illustrators, but when its legs were collected beneath its body as it switched from pulling with the front legs to pushing with the back legs.
Edison's kinetoscope.
Thomas Edison's interest in motion pictures began before 1888, however. The visit of Edward Muybridge to his laboratory in West Orange in February of that year certainly stimulated his resolve to invent a camera for motion pictures. Muybridge proposed that they collaborate and combine the zoopraxiscope with the Edison phonograph. Edison decided not to participate in such a partnership, perhaps realizing that the zoopraxiscope was not a very practical or efficient way of recording motion. His idea was for a device which would do for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear, record and reproduce objects in motion. He called it a kinetoscope, using the Greek words kineto meaning movement, and skopos meaning to watch. One of Edison's first motion pictures and the first motion picture ever copyrighted showed his employee Fred Ott pretending to sneeze.
Class discussion, Gertie the Dinosaur.
Having read Chapter 2, Animation Before Disney and Disney's Art of Animation by Bob Thomas, and having watched Gertie the Dinosaur on my gateway under the course week-by-week link. Click the discussions button on the left to join the conversation and answer the questions posted there. In your textbook, Bob Thomas describes the animation before Disney as having an absence of personality. After watching Gertie the Dinosaur, do you agree? If so, describe a way you think Winsor McCay could have added more personality to Gertie. If not, explain what personality Gertie exhibits and how you think her emotions were achieved. I encourage you to respond to posts taking an alternative view to yours, presenting your case in contrast to their opinion. Bonus points, if you can name the place in Walt Disney World dedicated to Winsor McCay and Gertie.
Felix the cat.
Few cartoon animals have hit the public's fancy with as much force as a certain rotund cat named Felix. Success has many fathers, as the saying goes, while failure remains an orphan. While Felix's success has never been in doubt, there have been conflicting claims concerning his creation. Much of the world had been under the impression that Felix's creator was none other than Pat Sullivan, whose signature adorns many a Felix drawing. But, as with comics and some other animation studios, it was a case of the Pat Sullivan studio owning the cat's copyright. The actual creator is Otto Messmer, who came up with Felix for a Paramount short, Feline Follies, which was released in November 1919.
Max Fleischer and Coco the Clown.
The character originated when Max Fleischer invented the rotoscope, a device that allowed for animation to be more lifelike by tracing motion picture footage of human movement. To test out his new invention, Fleischer photographed his brother Dave in a clown costume. After tracing the film footage amounting to some 2,500 drawings and a year's work, Coco the Clown was born. Aside from the novelty of the rotoscope, this series offered a combination of live action and animation centered on Max Fleischer as the creative cartoonist and lord over the clown. The clown would often slip from Max's eye and go on an adventure, or sort of pull a prank on his creator. Fleischer himself wrote, produced, co-animated and directed all the early shorts. Throughout the 1920s, the Fleischer Studio proved to be one of the top producers of animation with clever humor and numerous innovations. In 1924, Fleischer decided to go a step further and introduce a new series called Coco's Song Cartoons, sing-along shorts, featuring the famous bouncing ball. These early cartoons were actually the first films ever to use soundtracks, 2 years before The Jazz Singer and 3 years before Steamboat Willie. These sound shorts received limited distribution through the 36 theaters owned by the Red Seal Company, which became defunct shortly before the sound era officially began. While the last Coco films were being produced, the Fleischers returned to producing sound cartoons with a revival of the song films named Screen Songs, which were released to theaters starting in February 1929. Throughout this transitional period, the Fleischer Studio continued to produce a number of innovative and advanced films between 1929 and 1933.